here's a very important venue for concerns: the professional colleges. So often, I've given details here of the BC College of Teachers, and everyone who, in order to teach in the public school system, you have to have a BC College of Teachers certificate, right? And if that certificate is removed for any reason by the college, you can no longer work. So a complaint to the college about a teacher's behavior is very significant, and not to be undertaken lightly, because that person will not be able to work. It's very unusual that someone would be removed from the college, but that's the college's responsibility is not to the teacher, it's to the public. And that's what the colleges are. They're regulatory bodies that are there to protect the public against abuse by various professions. So we have the College of Physicians and Surgeons, the College of Dentists, we have a college for various professional bodies. So most professions in British Columbia, we have the College of Psychologists, speech-language therapists, occupational therapists. They're all, in a way, policed by the college. So if a member of the public has a concern about the behavior, the practice of a member of a college, they can phone the college and make a complaint, right? Again, we don't encourage this to be done lightly, because it's not, try and resolve it with people. We always say, and I want to now speak specifically to complaints about RAS professionals. So the Registry of Autism Service Providers, as I said earlier, there's now over 600 professionals on the RAS. So a number of those are controlled, are professions that have colleges. So again, speech paths, OTs, speech pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, all have colleges. If you have concerns about the behavior of any of those professions, you can phone the college and make a complaint. If there's someone who's on the Registry for Autism Service Providers, you can contact ACT, and we would say to you, so tell us what your concerns are. So for example, in the past, we've had families call us because the speech and language pathologist had charged for time they took to write a report. And they didn't think that that was a legitimate use of that they shouldn't be billed for that. So in that case, we explained that actually that is legitimate, that it does take time to write a report, and that's a justifiable expense. Now, if the person wrote a report without asking you whether you wanted to report and then billed you for it, that's a gray area. So you can speak to people who are on the RASP about when you sign a contract with them, and you should always have a contract, and you should always read the contract and reread the contract. And if you're not sure about it, you can always fax it to ACT or email it to us, and we'll tell you things that you could discuss. Because people will put things in a contract that you can still negotiate, right? You would negotiate about that new roof you were talking about. You could negotiate on what you will and will not pay for in an early intervention program, right? Or you can negotiate whether or not you want to be able to sign all the invoices before they're sent to the autism funding branch, or any number of aspects of that. You can negotiate these things, but you should understand what you're signing. Often when parents come to us and they have concerns, we like to talk it through with them, because it's to make a complaint to the college, it's a great resource, but we want to help you make sure that you understand clearly what it is that's your big concern. Again, pick your battles, document your concerns, get yourself organized, think about what you really want to say. And again, there's two sides of this here. Many families think that anybody who works with a child with autism has to be a saint, right? This is not the truth. They're human beings like us, and they make mistakes. And there are those who are very ethical and have a very high standard of practice. And there are others who it's, not quite so strong. So for families, we often suggest you talk to us first, and we'll help you work through if it's been a really bad year, or 2 years, as it often is in our case, where you have, if you were to say to ACT, for example, I've actually never seen the behavior consultant. He signs the invoices, but I've never met him. And the behavior interventionists, quite often they don't show up and they don't call ahead, but we're still being charged for all of this. Then we'd say, that's a serious cause for concern. And you might want to, there's no college at the moment for behavior consultants, but you should talk to the autism funding branch about these funding issues. If you're concerned about the quality of service, that's more difficult because the autism funding works that the family is given the responsibility of making decisions who to hire. And if you remember earlier today, I said, don't just hire the neighbor's cousin's child, whatever. Do your research, and because not everybody's the same, right? You have most of the people who are on the RAS now are highly qualified. But people have been on the RAS for 10 years, and those people who entered early may have not increased their qualifications, And you always, I think that anyone who doesn't continually educate themselves in this field, there is a problem, right? But they often, and the concerns I'm sharing with you are about a very small minority of professionals. Most people want to do better, and so if ACT gives them a call or the autism funding branch speaks with them, that will help them improve their practice. We're hoping that in the near future that the College of the College of Psychologists are now in negotiations with the British Columbia Association for Behavior Analysis, and that very soon behavior analysts, who are an important part of autism intervention programs, will be able to join the college as registered behavior analysts. And that will be a huge step forward. So that's a sort of, watch this space. But we do like to hear it at ACT. If you've had unpleasant experiences, we don't take formal complaints, but what we do is we write everything down and we start looking for a pattern of behavior. So if we're getting repeated complaints about the same individual, we will then take that information to the Ministry for Children and Family Development. And we're not saying that they actually are able to take a great deal of action, but it does help if we hear from families about what their concerns are. So often when we're talking about RAS professionals, one of the sensitivities is that they're coming into our homes. Many families are having therapy done in the family home. So there are all kinds of concerns there about how that works. I think one of the most important thing, and I'll talk a bit about it later, is that you are respected in the family for your culture, and I'm not talking about now culture depending on what part of the world you came from, but the culture of your family, and that the priorities that your family have are represented or are recognized when a intervention program is developed. So if you're not listened to, if you're told, okay, this is the program that we do, and we start at the same place with every child we work with, whether they're a nonverbal 2-year-old or a 5-year-old who doesn't stop talking, then there's a problem. So we really do stress that individualization is what you should be looking for. Very good qualifications, we can help you see what that looks like, but also the people skills. Because you can have a lot of degrees and not have the people skills to work with others nicely in the sandbox. So the BC Human Rights Tribunal is an independent quasi-judicial body, and many families have taken human rights complaints to them around the treatment of their children with autism. I have to say, to date, there's been some progress on that front, but the tribunal in general hasn't engaged greatly around the issues of children with special needs and the situations they face. I hope that one day they will engage more actively, especially when it comes to concerns with school district policies. So you can see here the Human Rights Code. There's the link there to read that. And this is one that many families call us and they say to us, we'd really like to sue because they're very upset about what's happened to their child. So it's not a decision to be taken lightly. Going to court is expensive, it's time consuming. You really need to have a lawyer who knows what they're doing, and we have a couple of lawyers at ACT who we know of who have done this kind of work before, but it's not easy, okay? So again, it's really important. What kind of documentation do you have? Have you got anything? Can you prove that you've tried to do these things in other ways and it wasn't effective? You should speak with other parents who've gone this route. Often the outcome isn't quite what you expected. It's very difficult to access legal aid, so this is expensive. But, and here's the big but, if you're successful, it can have a significant impact not just on your family, but on many other children. And so I'm not, just as in the cases we've discussed earlier today, the families who kept persisting. And one thing about families who have children with autism is that we're very persistent. And that's because when we come home, we still have those children and they need help. So we're very persistent.